We really are very honored to be recognized with this award. This was a story when we first got the tip. We were flabbergasted. We get tips all the time, some very legitimate, some from folks who just need a shoulder to cry on, and you really don't think there's very much to the tip at all. We had trouble believing this tip when we got it, and once we realized that there was more to it than what we originally thought, we knew we had a story that would likely make national headlines, which it did. I want to go back a little bit and point out that on the surface, while this is a story about mind-boggling abuse and fraud and incompetence at one of our nation's largest government agencies, it's really, when we step back and take a closer look at it, it's about just the power of one person and what one individual can do. That one angry tax preparer here in the Indianapolis area who had the guts to come forward, share what seemed to be an absolutely unbelievable idea with us for a story. Just that one individual coming forward, the impact that can make. Again, you heard the Inspector General say $4 billion a year is what this issue is costing American taxpayers. Over the course of 5 years, $20+ billion. That's what's potentially at stake here. And due to some reforms that are taking place in the IRS right now, that's what one individual could have saved all of us just by simply having the moxie and the courage to come forward. So I think that should be inspiring to all of us. Without whistleblowers like that, without individuals like those willing to come forward, you can see that probably very little would have been done. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But at a time when whistleblowers are needed more than ever, we find them more and more coming under pressure not to come forward. So, I think in many ways, this award is really celebrating the power of the individual and the whistleblower to come forward in a society where we really do need them. When I first went and tried to look this up on the internet, it didn't take too long for me to realize that what this tax preparer was telling me, not only was it legitimate, but there was some pretty strong evidence to back up what he was talking about. And that was in the form of an Inspector General report. And we're all pretty familiar with Russell George right now, because he's been on the news just about every day as it pertains to all these issues with the Tea Party having extra scrutiny in their applications to the IRS. When I first called the IRS, they wouldn't comment at all, but I quickly found my way over to the Inspector General's office. And the one moment of this entire investigation that will stand out in my mind more than any other is the response that I got from the communications director at the Inspector General's office. She said, "Mr. Segall, I have to be honest with you. I've been waiting years for this phone call. I've been waiting years for a journalist to pick up the phone and call me about this, and you're the first one." And that really stunned me. You have to remember, and if you have a chance to take a look at our broader series, you'll understand we weren't the first ones to report on this issue. The Inspector General released an initial report in 2002, again in 2007, 2009, 2011, all reports that in one way or another discussed this very issue, some specifically about this issue. And they got a little bit of media play, usually, about that much in a newspaper or a passing comment on a broadcast report, but it had never really picked up any national attention. We realized that what we needed to do, because this issue is so complex and the numbers are so mind-boggling, is we needed to put a human face on it. So the hard part of the story was going out and trying to find individuals who were taking advantage of this loophole. And when we say loophole, I want you to understand, it's actually a loophole. To me is something that is really a breakdown in the system. And that's what this is. What these individuals are doing, applying for tax refunds through the IRS, they are absolutely entitled to do that. It's just that individuals who are applying for these tax credits, well, they're supposed to have children who actually live here in the United States, children who are actually U.S. citizens. And in millions of cases, we found that isn't happening. So when we tried to put a face on this loophole and go out and speak to individuals in the community of undocumented workers here in Indiana, it took a little bit of convincing. What benefit would they possibly have in talking with us? And through having some very talented coworkers and translators to go out with us, we were able to help them understand this is not a story about you individually. It's about the system and how and why you've applied for these tax credits. And when we guaranteed them that we would not show their face, we would not show their identity, they felt a little more comfortable to talk with us. And to me, it's really being able to show individuals who were using the system in the way that it was set up and able to abuse the system because the IRS was turning a blind eye to what was going on. I think it was really the ability of our series to show those individuals and put a face on this issue, which is why within a matter of months, we actually had 13 million individuals watching this story online at WTHR.com. So many individuals, you have to understand, for a local TV station where we might have a few 100,000 people watching our newscast in an evening, to get 13 or 14 million people from all over the country through just really viral word of mouth about what we had uncovered in our stories, that's a pretty big deal for a little station in Indianapolis. So we were pretty excited about that. What happened next after our story aired was remarkable to me, and that is that one by one, usually I'm not an excited guy when I get a phone call from anyone at the IRS, but to be getting calls from insiders, whistleblowers at the IRS, people who work there who had so much pent-up frustration to say, Mr. Segall, we have been trying to convince our bosses for years to do something about this. Day after day after day, we hold up application after application that we know is fraudulent. And we're told, process it anyway, get it out the door. That's not our problem. Go and process and get it done. These people couldn't wait for an opportunity to talk. So we flew all over the country talking to IRS insiders, actually the inspectors for the IRS who see this firsthand. And, it's really when they started talking to us as well, when we had folks at the I-10 Processing Center in Austin, Texas, who were willing to look right in the camera and take on their bosses in a very public forum. That got the attention of Congress. That got the attention of the IRS. They couldn't deny this anymore. So eventually they implemented some steps to address this problem. Is it fixed? Absolutely not. There's certainly a lot more that needs to be done. But we're grateful for the role that we were able to play in bringing this issue to the attention of the IRS. I do think it is a national issue. It's one we didn't stumble on. It's one we didn't find. It's not one that we uncovered. We were lucky enough to be able to tell the story in a way that resonated with the public. So we're very pleased we were able to do that. We're very appreciative of this award and the recognition that we've gotten from your organization. And again, thank you for having us be a part of your presentation here today.
Mr. Segall, we're not going to take questions. We're going to let you go, but some of us wanted to know if you got audited after your series.
We were actually in New York last week accepting a Peabody Award for this, and actually that was we said we've got a pretty good feeling that we may be audited as a result of all this. It hasn't happened yet, but we're certainly prepared in case that does happen. I think right now the IRS probably has enough other issues on its plate to be worrying about, so we're hoping that might be later as opposed to sooner anyway.
Well, stay tough, and again, congratulations from all of us, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. We appreciate it.